This is Amy with The Hag Reads, and I am here with today's vlog. I'm going to be discussing two books that I just finished recently. The first one is The Murder House by Simon Beaufort, and this was the book I picked because I loved the title, The Murder House. I first read it as a title by James Patterson, and I really didn't enjoy that book very much. It wasn't awful, but it wasn't I didn't enjoy it very much. So I looked up at my library, hoping to find because there are often, with a title like that, many books that have that title by different authors. And according to Goodreads, there are actually quite a few, but my library only had one other book with this title. So it's The Murder House by Simon Beaufort, and it is set in England. And I talked about this book in another video. I showed it in a library haul. This is about PC Helen Anderson, and she is not new to the job, but I guess sort of new to the area. So she transfers in from an area that she really enjoyed, a town where she really enjoyed the work, and she found it challenging, and really just enjoyed the camaraderie with her fellow police people. She moves, she's transferred to a different area, not her choice, and winds up under a supervisor who is sexist, kind of old school, doesn't think women should be on the police force, is constantly harassing her, that sort of thing. So she's been brought in, and then there's another detective who kind of sees what's going on. He's not in charge of her, he's kind of on an equal level with her supervisor, and he tries to cut her a break several times. He involves her in some of his work, and she winds up helping him and being in charge of an arrest that was a pretty big deal for smuggling. And so there's a court case coming up, and there's a need to prepare for it. And the boss that hates her springs on her at the last minute on a Friday at 5 o'clock the case file and tells her she needs to brush up on it. So she'll just have to forego, I think it was a holiday weekend, so, she was leaving on Friday to go somewhere, and she didn't have to be back until Tuesday. She was going to go to an event with some friends, and she had really been looking forward to it, and her supervisor doing this at the last minute was just a dick move because he didn't like her, and so he was kind of like just rubbing it in her face before he goes on his holiday, over this weekend, that she's got to stay and brush up on this file because she has to testify in court the following week. So rather than stay and do that, she makes the unfortunate decision to take the file, which I don't know if that's illegal in the United States. Like, if you can't have the case files outside of the police station, like if you can't take them home and review them and access them on a computer and that sort of thing. Like, I don't actually know that. I've never given it much thought. You see police officers with files, on TV and in movies in other places beside the police station, but I don't know if it's actually illegal, or if it's maybe only because it's actually going to trial the following week. So she's not supposed to take this file out of the station. It's supposed to be, you log it in, you log it out. It's never supposed to leave the station at all, so that nobody who, shouldn't have access, or, might surreptitiously gain a glance or be observed by the wrong kind of person. So I don't know if that's like a normal everyday thing, or if it just has to do, I don't know enough about England's police procedures to say that that's, if that's everything having to do with police files, or if it was specifically because it was going to trial the next week. So she makes the unfortunate decision to take the file with her on the train to review it on the, it's a long train ride to wherever she's going for her get-together. And so she takes it on the train, and she's reviewing the file, and just prior to doing that, she runs into an old friend, and I'll put friend in quotations here. It's just somebody that she's known since grade school and has kind of a little bit of a history with, who's kind of a dick, and he's an attorney. So, she thinks not too much of it, other than it was an unpleasant interaction. And, you know, he's kind of a self-absorbed kind of character who just thinks he's all that, and she's discovered that he's just kind of a dick. So she takes out the file, she's reviewing it and all that, and she falls asleep. You know, it's in front of her on the train. She has seatmates that are kind of around her. When she wakes up, the file is gone. And she immediately knows that it's this attorney, because he's working on the same case from the opposite side. He's working for the criminal. And she immediately knows he's taken it. And here's her dilemma is she wasn't supposed to take it from the station. So she's done something wrong. And he's not any better for taking the file, but he would have never had access to it. And knowing that he was kind of a dick, you know, I don't know why she would take out this file on the train, knowing he was on it. But that's what happens. And so he proceeds to blackmail her into giving him additional information to help him win the trial. And it kind of escalates from there. I don't want to give any more away. That's basically the premise that's given on the jacket, and, you know, and on Goodreads as a as the little description box. And so let me look at my notes here real quick. It's an interesting premise. I mean, it's the kind of thing you probably wouldn't really think about, and 9 times out of 10 would have zero consequence. Lots of people do things they shouldn't do, and in this case, you know, of course, it's a novel. It's going to transpire that it works against her. So she's in what she feels like is a desperate situation, and she's got this history with, you know, the attorney character, and she thinks it's all over, and then, you know, it just kind of keeps escalating and escalating. And she does something that can't be undone. And I noticed on Goodreads after I read the book, I always go and look and see what other people thought. So I feel like, sorry, I have really chapped lips and they're annoying me. But I feel like she reached this irreversible point, and out of desperation and that old trope, I didn't have a choice. I was, you know, which there's always a choice. She could have, I think, called his bluff when it came down to it. And, you know, there might have been, I'm sure there would have been consequences if she hadn't hidden what happened at the very beginning. Then, you know, everything that transpired. But of course, for the novel, it all has to transpire this way. Up to the point of the, you know, irredeemable act. There's nothing that can undo what transpires after the initial events. And they just keep escalating and escalating and escalating. So I can barely read my notes because I wrote sloppy and small, and I don't know why I do that when I'm gonna so it was fascinating in the way in that it reminded me a little bit of You by Carolyn Kepines or Kepins. Without the creepy stalker aspect. You've got to see all of the rationalization for her actions all along. And at the beginning, I kind of sympathized with her and felt like she was a likable character, and she was kind of put upon by her boss, and she had coworkers who were trying to support her. But I feel like as the novel went on, I liked her less and less, even though I understood her motivations and why she was doing certain things. So it was interesting from a perspective of, I'm always fascinated as a, my major in college was psychology and religious studies. I'm always fascinated by the reasons people do things, like their decision-making progress or process, how much of it is, kind of gut reactions, how much of it is thought out, and, but the rationalizations people make and the reasons why they believe the things they do fascinate me. So from that perspective, the same as you did, this was a fascinating book because you kind of had an open, you know, front row seat to this, to her entire thought process and everything she did, whether it was a split second reaction, whether she thought about it, all the various ways that it could have, that certain things could have maybe backfired. It was fascinating in that way, but it was also frustrating because it's like when people say, oh, I'm sorry, I don't have time for that. Most of the time what they're actually saying is, I don't want to make time for that. So, you prioritize what you want to do. And if you really don't want to, say, go to the gym at night, you're always going to find a reason to make an excuse. So, I'm frustrated by people tell me, oh, I just don't have time for that. Because in my head, what I hear is, oh, I'm never going to make time for that. Whatever that thing is, whatever it's, if it's their regret that, a hobby they can't indulge in or whatever, things can be rejiggered. And yes, there are times in your life when you really don't have time for that. But by and large, you choose what you do. And so this idea that you had no choice, and that the things you did were justified because it, where she's justifying some pretty, heinous behavior because he took this file from her, but she should have never had the file in the first place. So I had no choice. It's a convenient, plot device, but it doesn't really hold water. You always have a choice. What I think you're saying, what's being said when you say you have no choice, is that it's the only way I felt I wasn't going to get caught for doing something I shouldn't have been doing. I didn't have a choice. And it works well in fiction, but it still bothers me on an internal level. Because, yes, you did have a choice. You made a choice. You could have canceled your plans. You could have postponed. You could have got there later. Yes, your boss is a dick, but she had this whole thing where this had been going on for a while, and she had never, she didn't want to make any waves and cause problems for herself. But it was also pretty obvious to all the other officers, besides this one that was trying to kind of help her out, that she was being treated unfairly, and nobody really did anything about it. But she also didn't do anything to help herself out. She didn't try and transfer. She just kept going to work every day and letting herself get abused. So I feel like she set herself up for this, and then she made a bad decision. And it's that one bad decision, and it had long-lasting consequences for her. The annoyances aside, I actually did really enjoy this book. It had several twists, and at the end, when you're thinking, is this going to end the way I think it should, the way I think it could? Is she, when you're reaching the point at which, is she going to get away with some of the things she's done? And it hasn't fully been revealed whether she's actually going to get away with anything. I couldn't decide if I actually wanted her to get away with it or not. Because there's still that idea that she wasn't completely in the wrong, but she did some really, really bad things. So I was almost to the point of where, yeah, I hope she gets away, you know, with what she's trying to do here. And, but with still part of me going, I don't think so, because she did something at the very, very end that, affected somebody who wasn't quote unquote bad. But all of her actions leading up to it were completely heinous and, reprehensible. And I think the reason that you can think maybe she should get away with it is because we've all felt that way, where, you know, you want to do something to get back at people that are kind of shitty, but you can't. So, it's just an interesting book all the way around. I did enjoy it, but there were just some ways of thinking, and I understand they're really plot devices, but it does bother me when it works out that way. The other book I wanted to talk about today is The Female of the Species. What is that? Tales of Mystery and Suspense. And this one is by Joyce Carol Oates. And this is my first experience with Joyce Carol Oates. So this is a series of stories. Let's see, real quick. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8. It looks like 8 stories. They're all short stories, and they are all largely about the capacity of women to do evil, of kind of one flavor or another. But the themes, the overall arching theme of this is, there's a couple, seem to be the dark ways women react to, what do I want to say here? Hold on. To, the ways that women are exploited, or marginalized, I think is really what I want to say. So all of the stories are about women, of various ages, of various lifestyles. I'll go real quick through the stories. I want to kind of wrap this up in the next 5 or 6 minutes. So, the first story is called So Help Me God, and it's about an abusive husband, and the lengths to which the wife is willing to go. I think you can just hear abusive husband and kind of guess maybe where the story is going to go. These were all very dark, kind of, you know, the violent, and some of the women are dysfunctional, and there's a lot of sadness and depression, and then just a lot of anger in general. So that's kind of the tone for most of the stories. Takes on at least one of those emotions, and if not one or more, but typically it focuses on one basic emotion that drives the story forward. So for So Help Me God, I kind of liked it. The Banshee, which is about a spoiled little girl. Her family are, you know, her parents are wealthy. They socialize a lot. She's got a baby sibling, and so she feels like she's being pushed out. She's not the baby anymore. And so it's kind of a dark look at a way she's trying to get her parents' attention at a soiree where she had been trying all day to get their attention. And so it kind of goes to a dark place, as you might guess. That one was called The Banshee. The third one was called Doll of Romance in Mississippi, which is a variation on pedophilia. This one bothered me a lot because the girl's name is Doll, is being exploited in a couple of different ways, and you get a very dark, vicious, angry character here, But this one I liked the least just because pedophilia is a hard subject to really, like, it's cringeworthy. And then the next story is, I'm not entirely sure how to pronounce this word, so I may do an incredible injustice to it. It's Madison at Guigno, which I looked it up. I've heard it used several times, but I didn't, really, I've never really looked it up. So it's a kind of puppet. It's a French thing. So a driven, selfish trophy wife in New York is constantly seeking perfection and feels like people are deliberately slighting her. And it's kind of the dark reaction that she brings on herself by being selfish and pushy and vain and self-absorbed. The Haunting, which is, it's kind of a surreal story. Very young siblings trying to deal with the death of their father, and the mother is there, but it's just surreal and creepy and weird. The next one is Hunger, in which a mysterious man, a woman meets a mysterious man in a bar, and they have an interaction and mayhem. I was kind of meh on that one. I didn't really... Tell Me You Forgive Me, which is about a mother who's in a nursing home. She's pretty much on her deathbed, and she's writing this letter. She's trying to seek forgiveness for something she caused her daughter to experience many years before, which psychologically scarred the daughter. I didn't really like this one. Like, it was... I understood the whole story, and I got why the events happened the way they did, but I just didn't find it, to my taste, I didn't enjoy it. And then it winds up with two stories, The Angel of Wrath and The Angel of Mercy. The Angel of Wrath is kind of a simpleton stalker, attaches himself to a woman and her daughter, and then the dynamic kind of gets flipped on its head, and I wound up feeling sorry for the stalker at the end. I thought it was just a bizarre twist, and I thought I enjoyed that one, but it still was disturbing. And then The Angel of Mercy is what you might think it is. It's about nurses in a ward where they deal with coma patients and people who are going through what are probably terminal treatments for, like, cancer and stuff like that. So it's a depressing, dark kind of setting, and you get kind of a dual storyline, one in the past and one in the present, and the way they kind of mirror each other, these two different nurse characters. I don't know if enjoy is the right word for any of these stories, but it's an interesting exploration of the ways that women lash out against their aggressors, or society or institutions, when they are marginalized or exploited. So it was interesting from that perspective, but I can't honestly say that I enjoyed the book overall. I liked some of the stories more than others, but none of them I was, like, really wowed by. So I'm kind of underwhelmed by this first experience with Joyce Carol Oates, but I won't let that discourage me from trying others, because short stories are just hit and miss as a general rule, often no matter who the author is. And I tend to steer away from short story collections, except in fairy tale retellings, where I do enjoy them a little bit more, simply because they are hit and miss like that. But if you consider the themes, it's well done. I just didn't, like, walk away from the experience thinking, wow, I'm really glad I read that, or I would want to own it, or I could read it again. None of those things are true for me with this book. That's all I have for today. I will say, though, real quick, with The Female of the Species by Joyce Carol Oates, the writing was really good. Very evocative, very well done. The stories overall didn't draw from me that feeling of wow, that was amazing, or holy shit, I can't believe what I just read. I just walked away from it feeling like, with some of them slightly confused, but for the most part, they weren't satisfying, I guess. But they did make me think, and I guess that's, really a good telltale on any book is, did it make you think about it afterwards? And it did make me think about some of the issues that were dealt with and the various, outcomes. And so from that perspective, yeah. But I think I wound up giving it 3 stars because I would never go back to it, and I would definitely not purchase it. So for me, that's a 3-star. If I wouldn't ever go back to it for reference or to reread, and I certainly wouldn't own it or recommend it to others because I didn't enjoy it. That is definitely all I have for today. I will be back again with another video tomorrow. I hope you are having a wonderful start to your week. Happy whatever time of day it is for you, and bye!